The month is officially over, and that means it's time for a wrap-up. Hi, hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alex, and today is the last Spooktober episode, which is going to be the October 2024 wrap-up. I'm not gonna lie, y'all, I'm barely here. It has been a really rough week. I'm really over it. I almost didn't want to film, honestly. Firstly, because the books on this list, the books for the October lineup, did not really pan out. I was pretty much disappointed with everything that I read, which made the month super long. It took me forever to get my books read. I was slammed with work. Life has been just a little bit too much for me on this end. And yeah, and then secondly, the election happened this week. It was all really stressful, and I'm just exhausted, mentally exhausted. I've also been sick. I've been sick for like 2 weeks. I don't know what it is. I don't know why. I have just been coughing with a sore throat for endless days, okay? And I'm just so tired of being sick. All of that put together, I'm a wreck, okay? But I'm here. We're gonna do the reviews. So yeah, before we get into it, make sure you hit all the buttons down below so you know when I'm posting. I post every week, and all we do on this channel is talk about books. So if you like listening to people talk about books, here I am every week doing just that for you. Let's take a moment to go over my rating system before we dig into the books I read in October. 5 stars means best of the best. I absolutely loved it. No notes. Will recommend it to anybody and everybody. 4 stars means it was still really good. I enjoyed it, but we did have some issues. Maybe plot holes, maybe pace, something like that. Something simple. 3 stars means I did not like it, but it was a subjectivity issue, which means it just was not the right book for me. I wasn't the right reader, but I could see other people liking it. 2 stars means I did not like it and it had fundamental issues. I probably won't recommend it to anybody. And 1 star is the worst of the worst. I hated the book. I wish I hadn't read it. And it had insanely major flaws. I usually reserve my 1-star ratings for books that are racist, homophobic, xenophobic, misogynistic, books that glorify rape or underage grooming, anything like that. So those are going to be my 1-star books, and I probably won't ever read the author again. There are no 1-star books today, so don't worry about that. I think I covered everything important, so let's not waste any more time. Let's get into it. The first book I read in October was Road of Bones by Christopher Golden. Okay, the cover on this is really giving a lot of vibes, and I really liked the synopsis of this book. Basically, we're following this documentary crew as they are traveling along a road of bones in Siberia. And the reason it's called that is because this road was built on top of the gulags. And as people were building it, and people that died in the gulags were basically buried underneath the permafrost of this road, and they kind of became the foundations of this road. And this documentary crew is on this road and also going to a very small town in Siberia to document spooky stuff. Okay, this is basically like a ghost hunters type documentary crew. So yeah, these 2 men are on the Road of Bones, and that's kind of like the whole story right there. When they get to the little town where they're gonna interview people and find lots of scary stuff, they find that the town is completely deserted except for one little girl, and that is kind of where our story takes off. Okay, so this book ended up not being at all what I thought it was going to be, because in the description of the book, it leaned so heavily on the Road of Bones being kind of like the focal point of the story. Like, it's this haunted road with all these dead bodies under it. The road was made on top of the gulags during the war. I thought that was going to be the main focus of the story, and it was not. But fortunately, the main focus of the story ended up being sort of this Siberian folklore horror story, which ended up being super cool. Again, I don't know why the description of this felt so misleading to what the actual story was about. Because if you had put in here that this was like a Siberian folklore horror story, I would have wanted to read it even more. So that part of the story really did pan out. I feel like the Road of Bones story, which was in here, was so underdeveloped and in the way that I didn't really understand what we were going to do with it. And it ended up not really adding anything to the story. So, yeah, I don't really understand what that was about. But the other parts of the book really worked. Lots of good gory bits in here. The pace was really good. I did this half and half on audio and reading it, and the audiobook was actually really well done. And there was some really cool stuff happening on the page. What's so funny is, like, pretty much after I got done reading this, I got on YouTube just to, like, for my nightly scroll or whatever. And a video that popped up was like a day in the life of living in this village. And that village was the village that this story was set around, which I thought was like insanely coincidental. I couldn't watch it just because like I was still sort of in my like head about everything. But I thought that was so interesting. I'm going to put the name up here because I cannot remember what it is now. But yeah, if you want to look into it, it's extremely deserted. It's very cold. They talk about that in the book a lot, how cold it is and how this like presents a problem in the story like over and over again. Anyway, I felt like this was very atmospheric, very fun, very gory, lots of good pace. And the story was really well done. I ended up giving it 4 stars, and the reason it didn't get the 5, like again, the Road of Bones part of the story, like it went nowhere. And it was in the book continuously, but it didn't develop into anything and it didn't add anything, and so I don't really know why we put so much time and energy into that. But yeah, if you look at this like a folklore horror story, it delivers. The next book I read in October was Annihilation by VanderMeer. When I tell you all I was so excited about this book, I was so excited about this book. And it's really thin, so I was like, oh, I'll finish it really quick, no issues. When I tell you all, it took me forever to read this book because it is so freaking boring. And I'm sorry, I know there's a lot of people on here that were like really excited about me reading Annihilation and like said it's their favorite book. What do y'all mean? What do y'all mean? I was struggling through this book, and I even switched to the audio halfway through because it was taking me so long, and the audio was just as bad. Like the narrator was so dry and monotone. I don't know. Okay, let me get into the premise, okay, before I like bash it anymore, all right? And I don't mean to, but like I did not have a good time reading this book. Basically, we have Area X, which the government scientists have been trying to study for a long time, but basically every time they send a group of people in, either they don't come out at all, or they come out and they die very quickly, or they come out and they disappear. Basically, this is all kind of kept hush-hush from the population because they don't want people to like really worry about it. But they are at a point where they need to start getting answers about what Area X is and what it isn't. So we're following a woman that decides to join one of the teams. I feel like this is like the 10th team, maybe. I can't remember. And she goes in with a group of an all-woman team. They all go in. I think there's like a map maker, a psychologist, a linguist. Our main character is like a biologist. And there's one more. I can't remember now. But they all go in, and this is the story from the biologist's perspective of what they find in Area X. I mentioned this in the Maybe series. This book was turned into a film starring Natalie Portman. If you all saw that, I think it was on Netflix or something. I will say this movie is extremely loosely based on this book, but I have heard a lot of people say this is a series, and I think there's 4 books altogether. I have heard people say that the movie is a culmination of all 3, the first 3 books. I can tell you right now, the movie was way more exciting than the book. This is insanely subjective too. So like I said, if you really liked this book, This is reading. This is subjectivity. All reading is subjective, okay? Subjectively, this book was not for me. First of all, we're getting everything in like a diary entry, which works in some ways, but also it makes the reading very dry because we're getting hardly any dialogue. We're not getting as much scene setting as you would in a regular fictional setup. And we're also getting lots of memories and stuff from her previous life, which is helpful for character development and all that. But it's not really giving us a lot of information on the page as is. Also, the voice that Jeff VanderMeer decided to tell this in is very cyclical. It feels like she talks forever without really telling us anything. Also, everything is insanely philosophical, I feel like, in this book. We just dance everywhere, but on the point. Everything is just very over-explained, but not explained at all, if that makes sense. So I went through and read the reviews, right? Because I'm like, maybe I'm just not understanding. And I feel like the reviews are very split. There's a lot of people that say it's insanely awesome, so atmospheric, and then you have people that are saying, I think when you say atmospheric, you mean boring. And I agree with that person. In no way did this feel atmospheric to me. There were a few times where I can honestly say the book piqued my interest and I was hoping we were going to like continue down the path that we were on. But just as quickly as I was given a ray of hope of this book being astounding and interesting and spooky, scary, science fiction scary, whatever, we veered in the other direction and we moved on our way. Almost nothing was answered about the area. We don't know what happened to her in the end. The book ended on this ending that was not a cliffhanger, but also not a finished idea. A lot of people have said the second and third book really help get to the bottom of the issue, and then there's a lot of other people that say all of the books have the same feel. They're all very dense, boring, and even by the time we get all the way to the end, we're not given the full spectrum of answers that we're hoping for. So I don't know if I will continue this series. I was so excited about this book, you guys. Science fiction horror is some of my favorite. This had so much promise. Like I said, I saw the movie a long time ago when it first came out, and I absolutely loved the movie. It scared the crap out of me. I thought it was really gross. Lots of really cool stuff happening on the page. I was expecting this book to be a reflection of that. Usually the books are a lot stronger. I was really disappointed in a lot of the aspects of this book. And even though we spent the book with this one character only, like her and her story, I felt like I did not know this woman at all. Basically, what I did know about her, she did not have an interesting life. Okay, the weird part about that is like she did a lot of really cool stuff throughout her life. It was not written in a way that intrigued me. She just seemed like a really boring person, honestly. I don't know. I'm sorry. I ended up giving this 3 stars. It was not for me. But like I said, there's lots of people that have enjoyed it and really liked it. So I don't know. You're just going to have to roll the dice with that one. Look at the reviews, and if there's people in the review section like that, you trust their opinions and stuff like that, and they really liked it, I would give it a go. But I don't really see myself recommending this to anybody. The last book I read in October was Gallows Hill by Darcy Coates. Okay, I finally read a Darcy Coates book. There were 2 Darcy Coates books on the maybes list, and this is the one I ended up reading. This is also the one that got chosen for book club, so this is what we read for book club. So this is about a young woman that gets a phone call and says, your parents have died and you have inherited a winery. So she goes to the funeral. The big twist here is that she has not seen her parents since she was like 8 years old. And her parents sent her away to live with her grandmother, and they like never reached out to her, never called her, never contacted her again. So she has not seen them in like 20 years or something like that. So she shows up to their funeral. Everything about their death is like really suspicious, and there's not a whole lot of answers. And she realizes that she has inherited this winery right where they work. and live. So she goes up there. She doesn't have anything really tying her to her previous life. You know, she doesn't really have a home or anything. The grandmother that raised her has also passed away. She doesn't have anything keeping her. So she's like, you know what? I'm going to try and make this new life work. Maybe I can get some answers about my family, about where I came from, etc. I want to stay and make this work. Well, pretty much as soon as she stays, she figures out that the land is like haunted. Because the reason they call it Gallows Hill is way back in the day, before it was a winery, it was where all the town hangings occurred. So basically the land is like cursed with the spirits of all the dead people that were hung on that land. And she starts to realize the depth of this curse after staying there a few days, and so she has to decide what she's gonna do. Okay, so this also took me forever to read. It's not really that long of a book. I mean, it's longer than Annihilation, but between my workload and like not feeling well, and I was also traveling a little bit in October, this book took me forever. I swear it took me almost 2.5 weeks to read this book. And then by the time I read it, I just felt nothing about it, okay? Was it scary? It had some good creep factor. I'll definitely give it that. There were some really good descriptions happening. It did not make me scared of the dark. When you're thinking like haunted house, haunted land, that kind of stuff, I should be a little bit creeped out when it gets to be nighttime. Didn't ever really experience that. There wasn't a lot of gore. There was a lot of blood. There was not a lot of gore. I think there were a few times where Darcy Coates really hit some high notes with some of the creepy writing, but it didn't last. Like, there was no longevity with the creepiness of it. You know what I mean? And after a while, I just sort of got tired, and I felt like our main character, like, just wasn't doing a lot. Or she wasn't being smart about anything, basically. Also, our main character was probably the blandest person I've ever read in my life. I don't think she had very much of a personality. She didn't have very much of anything going for her. She didn't have a lot of conviction. She didn't have a lot of willfulness. I don't know. She was just sort of there to carry the story on. I don't really know what we were supposed to be getting out of this character. She made a lot of interesting decisions. And that's about all I could say on behalf of her. I think the ending of the story was incredibly rushed. We literally got like the pinnacle of the story, and then like the next page was the end of the story. Like the book was over. There was no epilogue, which it desperately needed. It could have even done with just one more chapter. Another 2 or 3 pages would have really sealed everything off, but that didn't end up happening. So I felt like we went through all of this and it just ended so abruptly. No closure, no conclusion, nothing. I also think the side characters in this book were absolutely useless on just about every front possible. There was one character in particular that was basically on the page so much that it could have been another main character. And what did this man do for our main character? Like literally nothing. He helped her with nothing. He was there all the time, and he was just a space on the page because he literally didn't assist with anything, which was really disappointing because early on in the story we're told that this person is like very important to the story, or that he's there to help Margot specifically get through this transition, to help her take over the winery. And it's like, dude, you didn't help her do anything. You sort of just like stood around. I don't know. I was a little bit disappointed. I ended up giving this 3 stars. And the thing is, we had our book club meeting like last night. Before we had the book club meeting, I was ready to give it 4 stars because I was like, okay, it's not that bad. It actually had some good moments. I didn't hate it, okay? And like I said, there were some peak moments that were done really well. And the thing is, as we started getting into the discussion, the other members of my book club also said they really liked the book. And once we started like getting into it, working into it, I realized how many plot holes there were, how many issues this book had, how I wasn't really that excited about the outcome of most of the book. how there were a lot of questions that were just not answered, and how a lot of the characters on the page really just existed for no reason but to have more people on the page. And so, even though everyone said they really liked it, like, nobody was hating on it. Like, nobody changed my mind, is what I'm saying. Nobody said something and changed my mind. I changed my own mind because I'm sitting there like, why did I not notice all of these flaws while I was reading it? Well, probably because it took me weeks to finish it. I probably was not able to piece together all the flaws. But when you put it all together on the page, when you're talking about the book from start to finish, then you start to see, oh yeah, there's a lot of things that didn't make sense. So I ended up giving it 3 stars because a lot of it didn't end up making sense to me. Yeah, I was pretty disappointed, and which is a bummer because Darcy Coates writes a lot of horror fiction, and people talk about her very highly in the horror world. So this will not be the last Darcy Coates book I read, but let me say, like, as a starter, I'm not impressed with this book. I wasn't too impressed with the writing. So, like, yeah, I'll read another Darcy Coates book. Will it be soon? No, probably not. But we'll see. Okay, that's all I have for you guys today. Like I said, October, wow, rough one, okay? 2 3-star books and only 1 4-star book. Not what I was hoping for my October lineup. Like I said, I look forward to the October lineup every year. It's one of my favorite months to read. I could not get into it this month, partly because I'm so busy, and then the other part was because I was so sick. But I just did not have that good of a time, honestly. I struggled with all of these books in their own way. But especially the last 2, Annihilation and Gallows, that was really rough because I was not expecting either of those to really, like, flop for me. But here we are. This is the last Spooktober episode. It's been so much fun doing Spooktober with you guys. I enjoyed so many of your comments. I hope that you enjoyed the content and had a good time as well. I'm excited already for next Spooktober, but now we just have to get through the end of the year, which I'm already anticipating it being a long haul, okay? But you know what? We're in this together. We're going to get through the end of the year, all right? We're going to get through the end of the year. And then we'll start a new one, okay? So yeah, make sure you hit all the buttons so you know when I'm posting. I post every week. Let me know in the comments if you read anything spooky or scary for October. I love hearing from you guys. I know it's already like almost the second week of November. No, I have not started anything for November. There's no excuse except for I'm just exhausted. I'm not gonna lie, the book club book that was chosen for November is insanely long, okay? I will not be surprised if I only get 2 books in this month. So please, please, please be patient with me if that ends up being the case. I can just already feel November crushing me a little bit. First and foremost, I always have to protect my mental health, my physical health right now as well. And so if that means that I get less reading done this month, then that is what is going to happen. I hope you guys are all feeling well and doing well. Better than me anyway. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you all next time. Bye.